camera. I'm on camera. Welcome to Healthy Corner with Melissa Roches, where we discuss a healthy lifestyle through exercise, a healthy lifestyle through diet, through meditation and wellness. Healthy Corner. Good morning. Good morning, Briti Binafi. Buenos dias. Today, I'd like to introduce Healthy Corner again for this. This is our second show, Healthy Corner. We have a very informative show lined up this morning, and I hope that all our viewers will really appreciate this segment this morning. We are going to introduce Sandra Moore. Shanda Moore. We're going to introduce Shanda Moore. She's worked with cardiology, over 20 years, over 10 years? Yeah, so she will speak with us this morning about hypertension, heart attack. But before we go into that segment, I would like to share my story about my heart attack and my heart issues. In 1987, I experienced my first heart attack. We were in the Persian Gulf at the time. I was in the Navy. In 1986 or 1987, 87, I experienced my first heart attack, and I was placed on medication. And then fast forward to 2008. I was in New Orleans at the time. I had heart issues again. And then fast forward to 2010 when I had my very first heart attack. I went into cardiac arrest, and then they had to install 2 stents. And fast forward to 2015 when I had my first open heart surgery, quadruple bypass. I believe I actually died because I called 911 at the time, and I told them that when they get to my place, I would be dead, because I was having a hard time breathing, and I was trying to explain to them what was happening with me, but I knew that I was having a heart attack, and I knew that I was going to die. So when they came to my place, I left my keys and my wallet and my ID on the table. I left the doors unlocked, so when they came, everything was set for them, and I was already gone, because I don't remember anything until 13 hours later, when I woke up in the emergency room at the VA hospital in West LA. When I woke up, I was surprised they had all these wires and tubes attached to my body, and I was like, what happened? They said you had 4 clogged arteries. And I couldn't believe that, because I was in very, very good shape. In the military, they called me the sexy beast because I was lean, I was well defined. I lift weights, I swam, I hiked, I roller skate, I played basketball, I ran. I was always in excellent physical shape. So after my bypass surgery, I just couldn't believe what happened to me. But then again, I should have, because my brother died at 29 from a heart attack. I have young relatives who were 17 who died from heart attacks. So it shouldn't have been surprising that I had open heart surgery. My cousin Gilbert, he had triple bypass as well. And so I shouldn't have been surprised that I had heart attack. My dad, he died from a heart attack, so I guess it's hereditary. Um, yeah, so, but I'd like to share some of our pictures of my operations, my surgeries, and my trials and tribulations with heart disease. And I just want everyone to know that heart disease is real. It's real. They say hypertension is a silent killer because listen, you don't know, you don't feel as if you're sick, as if you have a disease, but it's a silent killer, and it will kill you. So yeah, let's share some of these photographs and videos of my surgeries.
My dad after day 1 of surgery. Give me a fist, Dad. Put it up there. There you go. There you go. He's a fighter.
And here, this was my very first walk. This is my very first walk, and this doctor, he was my cardiologist. He was in charge of the entire heart department at the VA hospital in West LA, and young black brother, a young African American brother, and he talked with me about heart disease yeah, so heart disease is real. So to all our viewers, pay attention, watch your diet, exercise, keep your mind free, keep your mind clear, because heart disease is real. So this was 2024 when I came to Jacksonville, Florida. I had arteries clogged again, and even though I maintained a healthy diet,
emergent cases. So
my heart was still acting up. But now today my diet is real. My diet is real. I don't do a lot of stuff I don't do anymore. No more fried foods, no more grease, no more salt, no more sugars. I keep my mind clear, exercise, meditation. Yeah, so keep your mind clear, and you'll be in good shape.
For our hour next, and then we will hang around our phones for anything else that might pop around. But during the week, we can do from anywhere from 4 to 15 or 16.
Yeah, so heart disease, hypertension is real, and hypertension is a silent killer. So because you don't feel when your blood pressure is high, but actually I can feel when my blood pressure is high. I can really feel when my blood pressure is high. I have headaches, lightheadedness. So I know from my experiences, I know when my blood pressure is high, and I know when I need to go to emergency room. But lately, I've been fine because I've been watching my diet. I've been keeping my mind clear. I've been exercising, and I've been checking my blood pressure. And you know what works for me? I eat garlic. I eat garlic every single day, so that's what works for me. But anyways, welcome to Healthy Corner, and we will begin this segment after this 30-second commercial break, and then we will introduce Shanda Moore, and Melissa will come, and she will take the show over, and she will introduce Mrs. Moore. So let's take a 30-second break, and we'll be right back.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Buiti Benafi, to all of our Garifuna audience members. Buti Benafi, Honsun Garinago, to all Garinago. Good morning.
This is a 3-minute blood
Thank you
pressure
all.
lowering exercise that you can do anywhere. It's called the nitric oxide.
Thank you all so much for joining today's show. We are going to have a very candid conversation. About heart disease, high blood pressure, not only men, but also the impact in women's lives, especially those who are currently in perimenopause, menopause, or transition into menopause, like myself, and what we can do in terms of our nutrition, and any kind of exercise or workout that we can do. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. Also, please share the live. We are trying to do our best to educate as many people as possible. Just bring awareness so that we can change the mindset, right? In our relationship with food, right? And how we respond or react to our body, stay more in tune to our body when it's giving us signals and symptoms that there is something wrong, or there may potentially be something wrong, for us to, take the necessary steps to get the care that we need. So it's very important that we do that. So with that, I am going to, we're going to switch over to the Zoom so we can start the conversation with Ms. Shanda Moore. So Shanda will introduce herself, and then we will, we will just have a conversation about cardiovascular and high blood pressure. All right. Good morning, Shanda. Thank you again so much for joining us and helping to educate our audience. And hopefully we'll have some takeaways from the show that will enlighten other people. I will also share the link for your practice as well, so that if anyone wants to follow up with you directly, they can certainly do so, and also follow your page, so we can get as many people as possible who may not, be aware of any of the symptoms related to heart disease, high blood pressure. But not only that, I know you have specialized in other care as well. So with that, I'll pass it to you to introduce yourself, and then we can start our conversation.
Hi there. Hi, I'm Shanda Moore. I'm a nurse practitioner. I am the proud owner of Prosperity Health and Wellness. I have had my health and wellness business for about 3.5 years, but I have been a nurse for 25 years and a nurse practitioner for about 13 years, which 10 of that was specialized in cardiology. I've learned from a lot of great physicians. In fact, my brother is a cardiologist as well. So kind of runs in the family. But my passion came from learning cardiology. I also was an ICU nurse. So I saw the devastation as a nurse, registered nurse in the ICU, and I saw the huge devastation from a different perspective as a provider, specializing in cardiology. And going on my own health journey, I realized that your health is your wealth. Not how skinny you are, not if you can get into a bikini, not if your stomach is flat and you got a lot of muscles. Those things, muscle is the key to longevity, I will say that. But being skinny, having big muscles, that is not the key to longevity. And that's what I really try to hone into patients. And I talk real, but I meet them where they're at. And cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of both men and women, in a higher prevalence in the Black community. And I really try to educate folks that it's not about losing weight, which weight is important, but that metabolic system, the food that you eat, your blood sugars, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, those are the things that are going to keep you on the earth longer and feeling better and looking better. So, there's a hierarchy of things. I have a practice in Audubon, New Jersey, South Jersey, right outside of the Cherry Hill area and right outside of Philadelphia, right over the bridge. I am licensed in 8 states. And my passion is just helping people live longer, feel better, and look better, just because that's just who we are as humans. We want to look good, but we need to feel good, but we need to have that look in the inside as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's get into our conversation. So let's start with the basics. What is high blood pressure, which is also called hypertension, and how is it linked to heart disease? And also, are there different types of hypertension?
So, high blood pressure is when the heart has to work harder to push the blood through your heart arteries or your blood vessels. And if the pressure is so high that your heart has to work hard, and the danger is that if the heart has to work so hard to push your blood through those vessels, the vessels are stiffened, the heart gets stiffened, and it makes it harder for the makes it extra hard for the heart to work against the blood vessels. So you can actually have a weakened heart muscle just from high blood pressure alone. So that's, and then people don't necessarily feel blood pressure, as your husband said. Hypertension is the silent killer. Just because you don't have headaches, blurred vision, nausea, doesn't mean that your blood pressure doesn't run high. And if you are told that you have high blood pressure, you should really take that seriously. If you're told you have other risk factors that you can address, you need to take those seriously. So to for the simpler terms, that's what high blood pressure is, the amount of force that's in your blood vessels, and your heart has to squeeze harder and harder to get your blood through the vessels.
Okay, and so who are more at risk of hypertension or high blood pressure?
So the risk factors vary. You can have issues with family history. If you have a family history of high blood pressure, I knew a colleague who had a family history of diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. This man ran 10, 20 miles a week. He ate healthily, but he still had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and diabetes because of family history. But people who are obese have an increased risk for high blood pressure. Minorities, specifically the Blacks, can have a high risk for high blood pressure. If you have headaches, if you wake up with headaches, if you have dizziness, those are people who are at risk for high blood pressure. But you can be slim and have high blood pressure. So high blood pressure really has no typical person, I will say, but you can have additional risk factors that put you at a higher risk for it.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into the impact on women who are in menopause or perimenopause within that age range, starting at age 35, I believe, and then you transition into menopause depending on genetics. I'm going to assume here it might be at 51, 52, and then at that point, my understanding is you are then postmenopausal, right? It doesn't necessarily go where you're just postmenopausal once you've transitioned over to menopause. So, how does menopause or even perimenopause impact heart disease and high blood pressure?
So I'm going to take that into chunks. So perimenopause can start as early as your mid to late 30s. So we kind of put the range of perimenopause 35 to 45, 55. And the average woman goes into menopause at age 51. What happens is as we get older and we go through that menopause transition, our estrogen is slowly going down. And the perimenopausal transition is chaotic, as evidenced by our feeling crazy. Like, do we have dementia? You forgot what you went upstairs for. You got in the car and you're driving. You're like, oh, where am I going? Oh, yes, that's right. You can't find your keys. You can't find your phone. Those are symptoms of low estrogen. And to be very, very transparent, for women, vaginal dryness, that's a symptom of low estrogen. That's a kind of taboo, not talked about issue, but it's very serious. It can impact a relationship with your partner, and it can mess with you. Dry
Yeah.
skin, dry hair, dry nails. But the perimenopausal transition, your estrogen is slowly going down, as well as the other hormones, your progesterone, your testosterone. We need all three of those hormones at optimal ranges to feel normal.
Yeah.
And as the estrogen decreases, that estrogen is actually an anti-inflammatory hormone. It helps protect our heart. It helps protect our brain. It helps protect our bones from osteoporosis. So if you notice, heart disease is the number one killer of postmenopausal women, women over 55, because their postmenopausal and their estrogen is, I won't say zero, not everyone has zero estrogen, but because we lost that estrogen, our risk for heart attack goes up. Heart attack and stroke, cardiovascular disease, period, goes up because our estrogen has gone down.
Started going down. Okay, because I know for me, I had anxiety. I felt panic attacks. I have night sweats, but I don't have hot flashes. But I do have get night sweats. But what I have done to help to reduce that is I've noticed how a change in my diet has helped to, and then making sure that I also take certain, like I take magnesium now, zinc as well. Those both help in terms of like the hormones and just trying to regulate as much as possible. But I noticed that making sure that eating the right foods has helped with the night sweats and not having to use a fan every night. But I do still have to, I do still have to use that fan every night. But I do notice that eating healthy, having a more balanced nutrition also plays a role in some of those symptoms.
So I will say that some women cruise through perimenopause and menopause with not a hitch. They keep their minds, they don't think they're going crazy, they don't have hot flashes, they don't have night sweats, they don't have anxiety, panic attacks, dry skin. There's crazy stuff like itchy ears, ringing ears, palpitations. Some women do not. And then there's everybody in between. You have your no symptoms, super symptomatic to where they think they're going nuts. And then there's everything in between. And we are women, we are queens. We don't deserve to suffer with the hot flashes and the night sweats and the anxiety and the panic attacks and things like that. We don't deserve that. We deserve to be heard, to be listened to, and to be validated, but most important, to be treated. To be treated, if that is so what you choose. There are women who choose not to use bioidentical hormones, and I completely respect that decision. Everyone is different. There are some women who can control some of their symptoms with supplements, such as zinc, such as magnesium, because I will tell you, there should be a party line between 2 and 4 a.m. because I can tell you, within the United States, there are millions of women looking at the ceilings, scrolling through their phones because insomnia, having no problems going to sleep, but staying asleep. I swear I want to start a party line for menopause.
I'll be
You're
there.
like, girl, I'm awake at 3:30 in the morning because my hot flashes woke me up, or whatever the situation is, because nighttime awakening with menopause is very real.
Yes.
But risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So there are risk factors that you can modify for cardiovascular disease. You can modify not smoking. You can have, I don't want to say normal BMI, but healthy BMI, because healthy and normal are two different things.
And BMI is body mass.
Body mass index. And the body mass index that's defined as healthy is 18 to 24. I can tell you for myself, my BMI, I think is 28, and it was recommended that I lose 40 pounds. If I lost 40 pounds, I could probably stand behind a pole. So, like I said, healthy versus normal is relative. So you can, not smoke, have a healthy BMI. Your eating is essential. Healthy eating is essential. And I don't want to say diet because a diet has a negative ring to it. So I don't want to use diet, but eating, healthy eating. exercise, movement, and, whether it's Pilates, yoga, walking, weightlifting, and
Meditation.
strength is over skinny. Muscle is the key to longevity. So, doing spin and doing running and CrossFit and all of those things, don't get me wrong, don't not do them. But weight bearing exercises for women and men is important. Strength and muscle is the key to longevity.
Yeah.
So those are things that you can modify.
Yeah, I do. I use 5 pound weights every week. I would say probably 3 days a week. And I do upper presses, right? Forward presses. I do lunges as well. And I do squats, right? To your point about strength, it's very it's critical for us women, but everyone in general as well.
Right.
But just speaking on the topic of menopause and perimenopause,
Yes.
that is critical to helping us to get through this phase without
Yes.
maybe helping to minimize us feeling like we are going crazy and get
Yes.
those endorphins, going where
Yeah.
you have a healthier mindset. Now, my doctors never mentioned perimenopause to me. My mom passed away 2 years ago, so I never had the opportunity to have those conversations with her. Now that I'm in that phase and transitioning, into menopause at the age of 50. So that is something that is lacking in the African American community or the African, in the diaspora. So are there things that's being done? And that will lead me to my next question about, the conversation about women and heart disease. If we're being ignored, for lack of a better word, in this industry when it comes to those symptoms and this phase of our life journey. So in terms of the African American community, have you seen or you experienced that where that is the education, right, and communication with women in that age range? Because I hear it a lot and I see it on Facebook a lot. It's like, my mama didn't tell me anything about perimenopause. I don't know anything. What's with all the hot flashes? Or in Belize, what you to talk about, gal? It's like we have all these different ways of questioning, right? Because there's lack of knowledge, or women have silently gone through perimenopause and menopause.
Silently suffered.
Yes, silently suffered. And then the children, the women, then silently suffer if that knowledge is not shared. So how can we address that in the community and also ensure that women aren't ignored when it comes to not only perimenopause, menopause, but as you mentioned, heart disease?
So I'm going to kind of start a little bit more broad. So menopause has been a taboo topic for women in the United States in general. I think women around the world, because there is a documentary called The M Factor. And the M Factor talks about, it brings light to the suffering, how women have been ignored, gaslit, and told just deal with it. And if I could tell you how many women that I talk to of every race, color, ethnicity, of how much they suffer, my brain is gone. I'm always angry. If my husband crunches that pretzel one more time, I'm going to lose it, But overall, overreaching, women have been ignored for so long. In the 80s and 90s, a bunch of women were on hormones. They were getting hormones. They thought it helped protect against cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis. So a ton of women were on hormones. However, what happened was in 2002, there was a study called the Women's Health Initiative. And that Women's Health Initiative had, I think, 40 or 50,000 women in it to prove that hormones cause or helped prevent cardiovascular disease. But the study was prematurely stopped because they said, hormones cause breast cancer. And so it was immediately stopped. And thousands, probably millions of women were taken off of their hormones because it was said that hormones cause breast cancer, stroke, heart attacks, and blood clots. Nobody wants blood clots, heart attacks, stroke, and breast cancer. So the short version is what they didn't tell us was that they weren't using bioidentical hormones. Okay. They were using Premarin and Prempro, which has horse urine and a synthetic, yes, it's called conjugated equine estrogen. Now, it is still estrogen and it is natural because it comes from a horse, but it's not bioidentical. Then there's progesterone. I think that's what it's called. That's the progesterone in that Premarin and Prempro. So there's a few things that they didn't tell us about this study. So the average age of a woman is age 51 that goes through menopause. The average age of a woman in that study, the study range was 45 to 75, but the average age of the women in that study was 63. 10 years past what the average age of menopause. The second, 75% of the women in that study had established cardiovascular disease. Because remember, they've been in menopause for a while. They've already had cardiovascular disease. And third, they did not use bioidentical hormones. They used the conjugated equine estrogen, and they used the synthetic version of the progesterone. So what they found is they think that the medroxyprogesterone is what caused, and the small uptick in breast cancer, it was so small, but they blew it up out of proportion. That study has been picked apart, proven wrong, and now we're actually under construction of re-educating the community, the female community, nationwide, worldwide, that hormones can be safe, that they are safe. When you think about the quality of life that hormone replacement therapy gives, getting rid of hot flashes, protecting your brain, bone, and cardiovascular system, and just increasing your quality of life. Now, there is risks, but hormone therapy has found not to increase your baseline risk of breast cancer, strokes, heart attacks, and blood clots.
What about
There's still
hysterectomy?
Say that again.
What about hysterectomy?
So if you are on estrogen, and you have an intact uterus, you have to take progesterone to protect the uterine lining. If you are on estrogen and you don't have a uterus, the progesterone is not so important, but it is important. You don't have a uterine lining to protect because you don't have a uterus, but there are so many benefits of progesterone. Progesterone helps with hot flashes and night sweats and calm and sleep. Oh my God.
Yeah, my mom had a hysterectomy when I was in college, and I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. And then again, now that I'm 50 years old and she's not here, like all of these symptoms and these conversations that we had that we did not have an opportunity to talk to in length, now all the light bulbs are going off.
Yeah.
And which is why I'm saying, there's a lack of knowledge. We, like you said, we're suffering in silence, but we need to educate women in our community so that they are prepared and they know that this is coming and this is part of your journey. But there are things that you can do now to, minimize, like you said, help with the night sweats and the hot flashes and the anxiety and the panic attacks and waking up at 3 in the morning. So I think it's important for us women to be comfortable or be uncomfortable or be okay being uncomfortable to have these conversations. So I try and do my best based on my experiences to talk to my family and friends, and then using this platform to be able to have those conversations. So going back to like heart attack patients, I remember seeing a video on Instagram. It was a Black doctor, female doctor, and she mentioned that African American women are at high risk, and I think we may already have touched on this, of heart attack during menopause.
All women, but yes. Black women, so Black women can have worsening symptoms of menopause. Black women tend to go into menopause earlier, and Black women have can have different women in general, but Black women can have different symptoms. We think that it's just a pulled muscle. We think that it's acid reflux. We think that we have the flu. We think we have a stomach bug. There's all these rationalities for the symptoms. But I will tell you that screening and testing can save your life. If I could tell you how many times there's people that will, they're going to get a knee replacement or they're going to get their hips surgery and they have to get, some cardiovascular testing. And it turns out that they have blocked heart arteries and they didn't even know that they had that significant of a cardiovascular disease. So women can have a profound sense of fatigue, like you got ran over by a truck. You can have pain. We call it in the medical field like a visceral pain. It is deep inside. It's not like if you touched or, things like that. And diabetics can have different symptoms. They can have a burning. They can have, an aching. Those are kind of typical but atypical. You can feel like you have acid. You can even have a stomach ache. I mean, and then you can feel like there's something stuck in your throat. There's not always the left arm pain, elephant sitting on your chest, sweating diaphoresis. Women present with different symptoms and we rationalize them as being normal or okay, and that's what kills us. But my point being is testing and screening before things happen. My philosophy is anyone over 40, you have heart disease until otherwise proven. And I say that because I recommend testing. Just because you don't feel bad, just because you're just 15 pounds overweight, just because your cholesterol is a little high and you're going to work on it, but your blood pressure is a little high, but you're going to work on it. Testing, screening, preventive care is essential. And I practice what I've preached. I had my stress test a couple of years ago. I had my coronary calcium score, and I'll get to that in a second, a couple of years ago. My journey started because I was overweight. I have high blood pressure, have high cholesterol. And when I saw this beautiful picture of me and my family on vacation, I was horrified. I was horrified. And that set me on my journey. Now, I did use medications to help me lose the weight, but those medications helped me lose the weight, get my cholesterol down, get my blood pressure down. I've done the testing. I'm exercising, whether it's going on a hike or it's walking or running or it's, weights and spin and things like that. But so the testing that I was talking about, one is called a coronary calcium score. Anyone can order it. A nurse practitioner, a physician, it doesn't have to be a cardiologist. But if you have a family history, you have some significant risk factors, I recommend you go see a cardiologist to get those tests done, to get a full battery of tests, even if you have no symptoms. But a coronary calcium score is a CAT scan. It is not a blood test. And it is a test it's a CAT scan of your chest. It looks at your major heart arteries to see if you have any calculable or they give you a number score of hardened plaque or hardened arteries in your heart. And it is a screening test. It's not 100%, but it's something to start with. There's also blood works. There's blood work. We talked about homocysteine. An elevated homocysteine can be linked to cardiovascular disease. There's something called a lipoprotein A, which is generally it's a once in a lifetime test. People do get it repeated, but it's a once in a lifetime test. It's a genetic risk factor score that we do. There's also something called apolipoprotein A. This is also a cardiovascular marker that looks at your inflammatory risk for cardiovascular disease. And there's another one called the high sensitivity CRP. This is also a cardiovascular inflammatory marker. So when you're looking at cardiovascular risk, not just cholesterol, not just blood pressure, not just blood sugar, if you take the collection of these things along with your family history, along with your personal history, and then you do testing, That's all you can do. If you do the work as far as taking care of yourself, living healthy as you can, and that's arbitrary too. I've had people say, "Well, I don't eat that bad." But then when you sit down and you actually look at what you eat, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised when you really have to take accountability for what you put in your mouth and the processed foods that are here in the United States, the sugar, the
White
endocrine
flour, yeah.
disruptors. I mean, it is nuts. There's things in United States food that is not even allowed in Europe. It's ridiculous. The meats having hormones and things like that, those all can affect your health. And when you sit down and you really look at what you're doing with your health, it is absolutely imperative that you make and maintain those changes.
Absolutely. Now, can you naturally reverse high blood pressure?
That's kind of a double-edged sword question. So the overarching answer I will give is yes, but there are people who have been diagnosed with high blood pressure. They do the things. They don't just say, I'm going to do the things. They change their eating. They incorporate exercise. They incorporate the testing that they need. And some people can decrease their blood pressure naturally with supplements and things like that. But if you don't, then you should be on medication to control the blood pressure because the long-term effects of uncontrolled blood pressure can be devastating. The long-term effects of uncontrolled blood sugar are hugely devastating. And when you have those two things together, along with family history, obesity, high cholesterol, that is a whole situation to head you down the wrong road. I don't know what road it's going to lead you to. Some people, they can have high cholesterol and really have no issue. But you don't know if that's going to be you.
Yeah, yeah. So very true. And then one final question: the link between sleep apnea. You also mentioned headaches as well, linked to high blood pressure. But if we can talk a little bit about sleep apnea and the link to cardiovascular disease.
So, sleep apnea is when they do the test and it is found that you stop breathing, but it's not that you just stop breathing, but your heart is stressed out with the sleep apnea because your oxygen levels go lower and lower. And what the research shows is that the mortality risk, when they do that sleep study and they look at your scores, they look at how many times you've stopped breathing, how long you stopped breathing. But one of the bigger things is the oxygen level. The lower your oxygen level during your sleep study and your sleep, and the longer your oxygen levels stay low, that increases your risk for cardiovascular disease. And the stress that sleep apnea and the pressures on your heart, that increases the risk for sleep apnea. Sleep apnea also can affect heart rhythms, such as there's a common one called atrial fibrillation. If you treat your sleep apnea, a lot of times that can decrease the burden of your heart arrhythmias, such as atrial fibrillation, because when your heart is working hard, that AFib is going to rev up and not be controlled as well as if your sleep apnea was controlled. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So you don't want to ignore the snoring, right?
Yes.
Even the congestion, right? You want to make sure that it is not contributing to your heart disease. And I have one final question. Regarding fasting and high blood pressure. Can someone consider fasting, for example, intermittent fasting, or eating raw food, drinking juices? Can that help to reduce the insulin level in addition to, adding more nutrients from fruits, vegetables, potassium, magnesium, fiber, soluble fat, to your diet to minimize the risk of heart disease?
So that's a kind of a double-edged sword question too. So of course, eating the bright vegetables and the green leafy vegetables and eating raw vegetables and things like that. Those are inherent things that you can do to increase your health. That's healthy eating. That's healthy living. Not all the time will that help someone decrease their blood pressure. Not all that it won't reverse any high cholesterol. Well, I won't say it won't reverse, but it can help decrease your overall comorbidities. And when I say comorbidities, that means your cholesterol, your blood pressure. There are some people that will work for, but I wouldn't say that I will recommend healthy living, which will include, healthy eating, healthy movement, as your husband said, keeping your mind clear and, doing all the things to do that. But I wouldn't say that that is a prescription that I would give. We will work on eating, diet, or eating, exercise, and lifestyle changes to attack those things. But overall, the overall arching thing is get checked with your testing, because just because you eat healthy, you eat raw, doesn't mean that you're not at risk for cardiovascular disease.
Absolutely.
That's the baseline of what I want to say is that I think Oprah had a trainer, and his name was Bob Green or something. He was a ultra fit person. He did CrossFit, he did marathons, he was Oprah's trainer. But guess what? He had a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
He had open heart surgery, and he had a defibrillator. The picture, you would see him on the billboards. He's like the billboard ideal health. But just because you eat healthy, just because you exercise, does not mean that you're not at risk. So the overarching thing is get your preventive health testing, maintain your healthy habits, but also find out what your risk is. Don't assume. Find out.
So my reading a comment from my cousin Tiff Jones. She made this comment earlier, regarding some of the symptoms. She wrote, "That's funny. I always felt like something was in my throat and always had heartburn constantly. And at 44 years of age, had 2 heart attacks."
44 is so young, but it's obviously not out of the realm of possibility. I had a young lady a few years back when I was still working full-time cardiology, and she had this burning sensation for months. She went to her cardiologist. They did stress tests, heart ultrasound. They're all screening tests, are good screening tests, but nothing is 100%. So long story short, she came to the hospital, even despite all that testing, and she just had this pain and it would not go away. It wasn't constant. So we did a heart catheterization. She had a stent at 45. And that stent is to open up the blockage to a blocked heart artery at 45 years old. And she was a Black female. So don't underestimate your risk. I'm not saying, freak out and, run to the doctor and say, but be proactive in getting your testing done. Be proactive in addressing your symptoms, whether it's with cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure. Don't ignore it because it won't go away. It'll just get worse. And another point I wanted to make is high blood sugar. High blood sugar, there are so many people who are in the pre-diabetic range. Diabetes is such an inflammatory process. It causes inflammation in those vessels. That is how people end up on dialysis, end up with heart disease, end up blind, because uncontrolled blood sugars are a huge risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And if you're pre-diabetic, I'm going to hit you hard like you are, because the longer we let it go on, the more damage it will do. And we have to stop it. You have high cholesterol. If you need to get on medication while you lower it, do it, because that is a risk for cardiovascular disease. I'm not advocating for everybody to go on medication, but if that's what you need to do to address these things, don't be afraid. If you have side effects, talk to your medical provider. But the pre-diabetes, can be just as devastating as diabetes because if you let it progress on, you're all of a sudden now you're diabetic
Yes, yes.
because you didn't do anything and you and your medical team didn't do anything the year prior.
Okay. Charles Lino wrote, can you talk more about high blood pressure disproportionately affecting blacks? There's information that suggests blacks are sodium retainers compared to their white counterparts, which may be due to genetic factors and survival of the fittest theory, which is slavery and transportation of slaves across the Atlantic.
I'm not sure about the theory of that Black people are sodium retainers. That I'm not too sure of. But I am sure of the foods that we eat have sodium in them. Lower socioeconomic people cannot afford fresh fruits and vegetables, and they get canned. So there's those risk factors too. So um, for whatever reason, genetically, Blacks have higher incidence of high blood pressure, but we also have a higher incidence of ignoring it and thinking that it's just going to go away, or because they don't have symptoms, it's okay. So I'm not too sure about that theory. I'll have to definitely look into that, but I think it's more about diet than anything and food choices because in our communities we use salt, we use a lot of seasonings that have salt. So I think that that is a part of the factors that kind of go into that, but it's kind of just genetically part of what's going on with us. No clue how that translate, but Black people do have a higher incidence of hypertension than whites.
Okay. So my cousin Tiff Jones said she had a stent. She had a stent put in her widow artery 2 weeks ago. And she has her first appointment with her heart specialist. And she asked, what is a good question to ask to kind of get to the root cause of her heart attack and even her symptoms?
So I would ask, did she go to cardiac rehab? Because cardiac rehab can be important after a heart attack or having heart stents. Number two, how often should I have my testing, retesting of my heart? Because when you have a heart attack, your risk for having another heart attack is double, triple. Getting good blood sugar control, getting your cholesterol controlled, getting your weight addressed if you're overweight, those are things. How can I prevent another heart attack from happening? What are the things that I need to do? What are the tests I need to take on a yearly basis? Do I need to see you every year? Do I need to see you every 6 months? What medicines do I need to stay on to keep my stents open? Those are things that you need to ask. How long do I need to be on the stent medicine? Did you have heart arrhythmias that need to be addressed? Those are things that I would ask. So, how often should I have cardiac testing? What symptoms should I be aware of that may be a warning signal of another blocked artery issue? Because your symptoms can be different. What is my risk for heart failure? People who have a heart attack have a higher risk of heart failure. Heart failure is when you have fluid around your lungs, your legs swell up, you have a cough, you have shortness of breath. People who have heart disease have a higher risk for heart failure. What is my heart function? There's something called an ejection fraction. It's the left pumping chamber. If your heart function is normal, that's good. But do you have a weakened heart muscle? What do I need to do? Who do I need to see for that? So I would ask those kinds of questions.
Okay. So I have one more comment, and this is more on the, two more, on the holistic side. Yentel Lopez Anderson writes, no meds. The key is to immediately get on a new intake regimen like vegetables and fruits. She also takes bitter melon, which she says is healthy as some of her solutions. So, there are some holistic herbs and foods, right, that that do lower blood pressure, right? Or
Food is
provide the
medicine.
nutrients. Yeah, that food is medicine. So what are your thoughts on the holistic approach to also help to, as we mentioned earlier, not everyone can get off of their meds, right? But if you can, what are your thoughts on the holistic approach to managing your nutrition, right, and your lifestyle, including the walking and strength training and everything else, to be able to keep your pressure down. But as you also mentioned, make sure that you get your yearly or your annual checkups, right?
I would say make sure that those things are working by, like you said, getting your yearly check, getting your blood pressure checked, getting your blood work done to make sure that these things are working, because you can be doing all the right things and you still have high blood pressure. You still have high cholesterol. There are lots of people who are able to reverse diabetes by diet alone, able to reverse high blood pressure by diet and exercise alone. But the vast majority of people, they need help, whether it's with medications or surgery or things like that. So just make sure that those things are working. Don't assume that they're working just
Okay.
because you look good. Check your numbers.
And then one more question from Charles Lino. Can you speak on social determinants of health and the relationship to high blood pressure in blacks compared to whites?
That is a really good question. So I would say socioeconomic status. If you live in if you have a lower income and or you live in a lower income neighborhood where your access to care is limited, or you don't have insurance, or you have a job that doesn't provide insurance, and you have lack of health care coverage, that severely limits your access to care. And as we know, people of all races, but specifically blacks, are in the lower socioeconomic status who live in a area where the hospital is small, they don't have the specialists that they need, they may not know the questions to ask. Their health status is significantly poorer than people who live in a metropolitan area with a teaching hospital that has a higher socioeconomic status, because they'll know the questions to ask. They'll have the resources to get that heart catheterization or that heart test and things like that. So that there is a very direct relationship between socioeconomic status, where you live, your income level, and your education level. People who don't finish school, they don't know the questions to ask. Not to say that they're not smart, but they don't know the questions to ask. And a lot of times they go upon what people tell them instead of getting their own knowledge. And our community falls prey to that a lot of times. They listen to elders who may have outdated information, not necessarily wrong, but maybe outdated information. Or you may have elders who told you nothing, just like you mentioned. So there's a lot of confounding factors. And the thing that I want to do to help kind of mitigate that is education. And you're using this platform to educate the community about heart disease. I do a lot of education talks about perimenopause, menopause, cardiovascular disease.
Hormones. Hormones as well.
Hormones, yes, because there is so much information that is not known. And I will tell you that I was in training programs with OBGYNs, with other physicians, to learn about hormones, because we don't get taught this in school. So I will say, don't cut your doctor's knees off in a hurry because he or she can't help you with your hormone issue. That's because he or she probably doesn't know how to do it. They don't teach us this stuff in school. Even GYN doctors and endocrinologists, they are going to get additional training on hormone therapy. Go to your cardiologist to get specialty testing. If you don't agree with the doctor that you're going to, go to another person and get a second opinion. There are way too many medical providers out here for you to keep going to somebody that doesn't align with what you believe.
Yes.
Now make sure you educate yourself.
Absolutely. And, as you're talking, I just think about, my community in Dangriga, Belize. We walked a lot. If you're in the Caribbean, you walk a lot. There are more vehicles now than before, but you walk a lot. You get more sun, right? You walk a lot in the sun. There's a lot of, most people also ride their bikes. But we have a huge Asian community, and they are the primary owners of the grocery stores, right? So, looking back, and I hear this often also, is grocery stores weren't created until 60, 70 years ago, right? So what did we do in terms of our food and nutrition? We went out and sourced them ourselves, right? So a lot of the grocery stores in our communities, similar to the US, it's easy access to food that are on the shelves, right? Than going out to buy the groceries, the fruits and the vegetables like we did in the past. And it's important, I say that to say it's important for us to go back to that, right? Which was not detrimental to our health, right? Because back then, our elders, they didn't have, certain, oils and stuff that they used to cook. And even if they did have their hog mogs or whatever, here in the US, they still lived to 80, 90 years old and probably had some, health issues, but we're not aware. But a lot of the foods and the oils and stuff that we use were not introduced until 60, 70 years ago. So I think it's important for us to remember, where we came from, right? Think back to your elders. And like I said, it's important for us to change our mindset and our relationship with food.
100%.
Right? That's where it begins. Your relationship with food does not, and I'm not speaking for anyone, it doesn't have to be eating 3 meals a day, right? With all the carbs, right? And all the sugar. It could be 3 meals that includes a salad, fruits, right? That can be your fast food, right? Fruits can be your fast food, not necessarily McDonald's or Zaxby's or, whatever fast food. Change your mindset on what fast food, your definition of fast food is, because fast food can be picking up an orange on the go, your strawberries, your blueberries that are actually good for your heart and helpful, with diabetes and other diseases. But I think it's important for us to think about like you said, what we eat, what we put in our bodies, and try to think about, like I said, changing your mindset of what the definition or what's been defined as fast food here in the US and abroad and everywhere else, right? I think if we are able to just get back to those basics, we can help the next generation live longer and healthier lives by reintroducing those foods to them and making sure, because I hear a lot about kids at 4 that has eczema and psoriasis, rashes and itches, and it's the food that we are eating. So I'm hoping that this conversation has helped, our audience, and I hope that, we're able to share the live and get the word out that, a lot of the issues that we are facing in our communities, we can reverse some of them, starting with what we put in our bodies. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. People
need to be accountable to what they eat.
And be accountable, yeah.
Right? Well, I eat healthy. What does healthy mean to you versus what really is healthy and what you're putting in your mouth? You have to be accountable, because now the fast foods, the chicken nuggets, the French fries, the Pop-Tarts, the, processed cereals, grains, sugars and things like that we give our kids, that the little ones, like you said, 4 and 5 are eating now, those are devastating to their health. And it's going to cause health. They're going to cause worse health problems earlier than even our generation. We're suffering now, but we had a little bit of healthy eating before it got bad. These poor little ones now, all they've got is fast food and processed food and things like that. And that's going to be devastating to their health in the
In the long
future.
run, yeah. So from Dorina Castillo, in spite of all the sun in our jewel, that's what we call Belize. We call Belize the jewel. Would you believe that most of us are told we are vitamin D deficient? How could we increase our vitamin D? That's a very good point. And the importance of vitamin D. I hear that a lot. How important vitamin D is to our body, our skin.
So weirdly, you would think that people with melanin, extra melanin, have good vitamin D levels. However, vitamin D can come from food as well as supplement. But vitamin D is essential for thyroid support, hormone support, immunity, and mental health. And having inadequate or non-optimized vitamin D levels can be devastating, can cause, issues with depression, issues with metabolism, issues with hormones, because like I said, for hormone support. So vitamin D is very, very essential. Typically, the optimal ranges for vitamin D for how I practice is 60 to 80. And that's one more point that I wanted to touch on. So optimal versus normal. So you have a vitamin D and you get your blood work back from LabCorp and it says 32. Your provider says, oh, you're good. But guess what? The low level of vitamin D on LabCorp is 30. So you're 2 points from being on the low end. So optimal versus normal. I like to optimize, not normalize. So I tell patients your vitamin D may be normal, but optimal vitamin D is 60 to 80. So you may need to supplement it for a little while until you can get it up and then do some maintenance. So
especially if you're not live in a state that has warm temperatures like Florida, right? We get a lot more sun than New York or New Jersey if you live in the Northeast or Midwest. So that supplement, right, of vitamin D may be more helpful for people that live in those states where you have less sunlight in the winter and in the early spring, right?
I would say yes, 100%. But yet again, I would say check and make sure.
Okay.
Don't make the assumption that you have enough vitamin D.
So my cousin Ted said, Melissa Roches, you're going back to your days of eating mango and guava and cravens. Yes. I mean, I remember waking up with my grandmother to go and buy. This was the routine. You wake up at 5 in the morning. You go to the fish market. You wait for the fresh catch of the day. We knew when the fishermen were coming in. So everybody would come, you'd make your way to the market by 6. You see the boats coming in, you get your fresh catch of the day, and, you take that home to cook. In Belize, we have, our biggest meal was at noon, at lunchtime. So in the morning, yes, we would have our breakfast, and that breakfast now, in hindsight, is cooked in oil that's not good for us, but we have fried jack, like the Trini and the Guyanese have fried bake. We call it fried jack, with stew beans, and then either fried chicken or fried fish or just or egg. So that's your protein your protein source. And then we would have our dinner when the kids come home from school, because you get a break. The kids go to school from like 8 to 11, I think it is, or 8 to 12. You come home, you eat between 12 and 1, you go back to school. And between 12 and 1 was when we had our biggest meal. So it's because Belize was colonized by the British, right? So then in the evening, you had supper, which was something light to eat, right? So now you're not eating 3 full meals a day or snacking in between. You're balancing or managing your, what you eat and when you eat. because that impacts, the insulin sensitivity. So, I say that to say also, Charles Leno mentioned DASH diet, right? Is that one of the, before we wrap up, and I ask you first, for some final words for our audience, if you can speak a little bit about the DASH diet before we wrap up our show.
So DASH diet is the diet against, I forget the acronym, but it's diet against preventing hypertension. I forget what the actual name is, but DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. These diets are awesome in focusing in lean meats. It really pronounces the bright vegetables, green leafy vegetables, decreases of the oils and the fats and the butter and alcohol and things like that, and fish and things like that. These diets are what we recommend to people with hypertension, because these diets can decrease your high cholesterol and high blood pressure, along with movement. And, as you mentioned many times before, your mindset, your accountability to the food that you eat. So these are things, if you need something to follow, you can Google these two things, and they are really, really good, because they give you, if you don't like to follow something, but you just need ideas, if you need an eating plan, there's lots of things out there that are similar to the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Dietary approaches to stop hypertension.
To stop hypertension. Yep. So thank you so much, Shanda. I can't tell you enough, and I've said this plenty of times, but we truly appreciate you coming on to help us to educate our communities, and again, helping to just change our mindset and our relationship and our love for food, so that we can live a healthy lifestyle, and live a long life, so that we can be here for our children and our children's children and our children's children's children, right? So again, it's okay to want food, but let's focus on the right food that we fuel our body with, that will help us to thrive and give us energy, instead of making us feel fatigue and just blah, and contribute to even our mindset, our hormones, and making us feel anxiety or jittery, having all of these symptoms because of how, these foods were processed, and how they're marketed to us here in the U.S. We can take control back, and it simply starts with fruits, vegetables, getting some sun, working out, and then, just making some small changes and be consistent with them.
Yep.
And before you know it, you feel the impact of what these changes has done for you, and you can impact someone else's life. As simple as making those changes yourself. So,
Right.
Do you have any final words for us, Shanda?
So I can't remember if I said this before, but these are not my quotes, but I love them. The first sign of a heart attack is a heart attack. And your first day of symptoms could be your last day on earth. So don't ignore the symptoms. Get checked out, get your testing done, get your blood work done. Don't make any assumptions, get real information. As far as my practice, I do telehealth in 8 states. I have a cardiologist that I work with that can do consultations to kind of help you evaluate your risk for heart attack and stroke. I have an office in Marlton. I have an office in Audubon. Like I said, I do telehealth, and I can do a 15-minute consultation, whether it's for weight loss, whether it's for hormone balance. And then I also do some integrative medicine, where we do testing to look to see if you have food sensitivities, if you have stress hormone issues. I take a different look. I use a different lens with blood work. Like I said, I optimize, not normalize. So if you'd be interested in a consultation, you can go on my website, which is www.camdencountyweightloss.com. You can book a 15-minute free appointment. We can chat, see how I can help, Or if I can't help, and I will tell you that, I can refer you to someone who can.
Awesome. So I will share the link to your website, also your Facebook and Instagram page as well. Again, thank you so much, Shanda. I truly appreciate it. Love the engagement from our community to just continue to get the word out and answer questions that they had in today's segment. So thank you again. Hopefully we can have you again as our guest as we continue to figure out what our platform is here, right? How we can continue to be a voice for people in our community who may not have health insurance, right? They can use this as educational or informational and start there, and then hopefully take the right steps to get the care that they need. So thank you again so much. We appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you answering your questions, educating us as well. And I look forward to engagement with you and working with you again in the future.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I enjoy educating people because education is power. Don't ever walk into a doctor's appointment and not know something about what you have a question about. There is way too much on this World Wide Web to be to not know anything, doing research, and verifying your research, verifying your information, because there is a lot of stuff on the World Wide Web. But, do what works for you, get your numbers checked, get your testing done, and hopefully that will do the trick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thanks again, Shanda. We will
Thank
talk to you
you
again soon.
Yes.
Have a good day. Enjoy your Saturday. As we say
Thank
in
you.
Belize, in Garifuna, ayo, that means bye.
Oh, ayo.
Ayo. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you again to Shanda for jumping on today on the Zoom. So we're going to move on next. We're going to touch a little bit on some of the foods that, we talked about fruits and vegetables that are good for heart health. So we're going to jump to one of the slides that I have. So Francois mentioned garlic. So garlic boosts your blood flow. We also have ginger, which relaxes your blood vessels. Spinach, which is rich in potassium. Pomegranate, packed with antioxidants. These are all good for blood pressure. Oats reduces cholesterol. I'm not quite familiar with oats on that list, but and I don't eat oats. If I do, it's a ancient grain oats that hasn't been stripped of all its mineral and nutrients. Watermelon is also good for blood pressure. Flaxseed, which is high in omega-3 fatty acids. So we usually get omega-3 from seafood, fish, salmon. A good alternative is flaxseed, which you can just sprinkle on your smoothies. You can just sprinkle on your food. I sprinkle it on all my everything I eat. I'll sprinkle flaxseed and also hemp seed, which is also high in omega-3. So next we are going to jump into a quick walking benefits. So quickly, let's talk about walking benefits before we jump into a quick exercise video. All right. So here are some of the benefits of walking. Just 1 minute of walking increases your blood flow. 5 minutes improves your mood. 10 minutes reduces your cortisol. So cortisol is another hormone similar to insulin resistance. And, please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the audience on this. But cortisol is another hormone that, drives fight or flight. meaning it's the hormone that triggers stress, stress, anxiety, panic attacks. So cortisol, when your cortisol level goes up, you want to do what you can to reduce your cortisol level. And one benefit of that is walking. 30 minutes of walking, fat burning begins. 45 minutes, overthinking reduces. I can attest to that because as a runner, if you follow me, you all know that I've run 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, a plethora of marathons. That was my way of staying healthy and also, doing my part to educate the community how important it is to just move something. So I joined Black Girls Run. They are a critical part of my journey, and they help me so much. But, you don't have to run. You can walk. Now, we've all run in the past. If you don't run now, that's fine. But walking is so beneficial. It helps to bring your blood pressure down and regulate your blood sugar as well. So get out and walk, even if it's only for a few minutes. All right, so now we're going to move on to a video about some exercises that you can do to bring your blood pressure down. This is Dr. Christine. I'll share her information as well in the comments. But she had high blood pressure. She has a book out about how she naturally healed herself, reduced by, reversed actually. Reverse how she reversed her high blood pressure. She has a book on it. You can also find her on Instagram. I follow her, and she gives some really great tips. She also has a video that she put up on Instagram. I believe it was yesterday or day before yesterday, talking about like avocado, like what food is medicine. Right, so she explains how some of the food that we eat, is in the previous slide, how they improve your blood flow, open up your blood vessels. So that's why it's important for us to eat these foods instead of some of the shelf food that's being marketed to us to purchase that have been stripped of all its some of the important vitamins and nutrients like potassium. And fiber. So you're not only eating fruits and vegetables, but you're getting the nutrients that it needs to keep your heart healthy, your blood pressure down, your cortisol, and all of those things. So Christine is going to demonstrate in this video just some quick strength training or exercises that you can do to help you reduce your blood pressure.
Minute blood pressure lowering exercise that you can do anywhere. It's called the nitric oxide dump, and it works by getting your body to produce nitric oxide, thereby lowering your blood pressure. Now, I found this research study where they took 20 participants with high blood pressure, split them into 2 groups. 10 of them did the exercise, 10 of them didn't. And those that did the exercise had a significant decrease in their systolic pressures, up to 20 points, just by doing these 4 exercises, y'all. These 4. Now, I showed y'all the beginner routine, but if you want to kick it up a notch, you can use some weights. But here you see me just doing these exercises, only 4 of them. You can get through all 4 in about 3 to 4 minutes, and you can do as many reps as you want to. But the beauty about this exercise is you can do it anywhere. You don't need a gym. You don't have to worry about, oh, the weather is not good for me to walk outside. Oh, it's dogs out there. It's dangerous. Oh, I don't have a gym membership. None of this will stop you from getting this exercise in. So come on, y'all. Let's go. Toodles.
All right. I love her energy. So that ends today's broadcast. I know we went a little over, but it was great conversation with Shanda Moore. Again, thank you to Shanda for joining. Thank you for your engagement in the comments. I hope we were able to answer all of your questions. Next week, we are trying to book another guest, someone from within the Garifuna community. We have a lot of people in our community who are in the healthcare industry. So we're hoping to tap into those resources so they can help us to, get the word out about health and wellness and meditation and changing our mindset and how in our relationship with food to go back to eating more fruits and vegetables. So stay tuned for more guests. Hopefully we can actually have a cardiologist come on. So we're doing our best to reach out to people who can help us and help you get your questions answered. And then again, continue to spread the word in the community. So with that, I will say, listen, we are all doing our best. We have information out there. In this, like Shanda said, in this whole World Wide Web thing. And, don't be hard on yourself, because we are all doing our best. That's all I can say. Don't be hard on yourself. We're all doing our best. But more importantly, please, 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 always love on yourself and also give yourself some grace and self-care. All right, that ends today's Healthy Corner broadcast. Ayo.
Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Millennium 2000 is upon us. Still we sit around with a fuss. Arise, indigenous people. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Sarawak, Lida, Yewenedu. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Chulu, Hada, Nidumeyu. The time is now, Garinagu. Sarawak, Garinagu, Sarawak. Wake up, Garinagu, Sarawak. Wake up, Sarawak.